And today my topic of my presentation is security challenges in South Asia and envisioning cooperative security architecture for the region. As all of you know, most of you spoke about the military challenges, the nuclear issues, the problem between Sri Lanka, India as a factor in Sri Lanka-Pakistan relations. What I will do is I'll be focused mostly on non-traditional challenges and how a cooperative security framework can be envisioned in that particular area. Because otherwise, when one speaks of the military security, it becomes a bit difficult to speak of cooperative security, because each of the states in South Asia look at the other state as a challenge. So therefore, I would like to focus on the non-military, non-traditional issues where cooperation is feasible, but it has been extremely slow. Not much progress has happened between the countries in South Asia. Now let me first come into what are the common security challenges in the region. Basically non-traditional security threats, non-military challenges posed by non-state actors which engages the military in a very, very significant manner, especially on the issue of terrorism, where most of the militaries in South Asian countries have been fighting this menace for quite some time. Then there is also impact of global security dynamics arising out of globalization, globalization of technology, globalization of market, movement of labor across the national border. And therefore, I feel, there is a need for a regional order where actually the countries of the region can think and frame a security framework, or at least, the transactional issues of business, where some of these issues can be addressed within the regional framework. Of course, we already have South Asia Association for Regional Cooperation as a regional organization. Apart from that, we also have other multilateral organizations which has been functioning in this region. Some of them do not actually encompass all the SAARC countries. Some are sub-regional, some are regional. I'll come to that during the course of my presentation. Now the question is that, why a regional order and how this regional order is going to address the kind of problem which the South Asian countries are facing. Now the challenges of poverty, unemployment, political aspirations, the ethnic assertion which one has seen all over South Asia has emerged as a major challenge to the nation state in South Asia. As all of us, we also realize that the constitution of a kind of identity in South Asia, which has always been majoritarian, has actually undermined the pluralistic societal and political order in South Asia. So therefore, that actually creates a kind of, problem that threatens the identity of the others. And given the kind of ethnic mosaic that is prevalent in South Asia, this becomes much more challenging, like cross-border ethnic affinities, cross-border religious affinities. Those kind of things actually make most of the issues, which are internal political issues, which actually, it transcends the national boundary and it has interstate ramifications. And that actually, in itself has a larger regional implication, as one has seen in the context of South Asia. Of course, the economic underdevelopment, migration of labor forces from one country to the other, and also the climate change and natural disaster, which leads to the displacement of population, and sometimes has also been a factor in migration. Now, what should be the component of this new regional order? Of course, the multilateral security cooperation, which most of the states in South Asia are already part of this multilateral security cooperation organization, be it the United Nations system, be it, other sub-regional and regional kind of associations like the SAARC, BIMSTEC, IORA, sorry, I have put C, which is the new, new name for the IORA-ARC, are some of the regional organizations which has come into being. Though IORA focuses much more on the economic issues, BIMSTEC and SAARC also focuses on issues of terrorism, issues of drug trafficking, narcotics, and other non-military issues, which actually require close collaboration between the intelligence agencies and also between, between the interior ministries of different countries. So therefore, multilateral organization also has become a new component of regional order, which is very, very new. Like the SAARC was established 30 years back. It is still has not made much progress, but still I will say SAARC is work in progress rather than, it is a constant thing. The economic connectivity also has become a new buzzword in this entire context of globalization. Now, when one look at economic connectivity, which again addresses the issue of poverty, of unemployment, of providing employment, of tackling with the issues of cross-border migrations, I think this becomes very important. When one speaks of economic connectivity, one not only speaks of trade connectivity, access to market in each other's country, but also one speaks of the labor migration, which in fact has become a major controversy in South Asia, where labor migration within the region has not been very, very easy, because each of the countries are also facing the problem of unemployment, problem of underemployment. So therefore, whenever this question of providing work permit or providing employment to the national living in other countries is broached, it is always seen as a kind of threat to the domestic labor market. And there are forces who have been against any kind of labor integration or any kind of integration which actually allows the foreign laborer to come and work in the South Asian markets. Though the South Asians themselves have been employed in many of the areas in the Gulf, in European countries, in United States, but the South Asian countries themselves have not been very, very open about labor migration, especially the unskilled one. Then, of course, this question of mutual trust building is also very, very important. Because when one speaks of non-military threat like climate change, flood control, or the issue of migration, I think one also needs a lot of mutual trust building. Whereas at one, the contradiction in the South Asian region is whereas in one hand you have this concept of monolithic identity building of the nation states, which actually does not undermine the identity of many of the ethnic communities living in the state, and some of these ethnic community having cross-border ethnic affinity and linkages. On the other hand, and some of the time also this identity factor, the identity of the state, has become synonymous with the region security. The state security and region security, when it becomes synonymous, it actually becomes very difficult to address this issue of human security, especially the humanitarian aspect. So therefore, most of the time the states have been projecting the military issues as the major security threat, and this continued till the Cold War period. And in the post-Cold War period, this one has seen, a kind of change in the approach of the states. I think with the new government coming to power in New Delhi, one has seen again the focus is coming back to the region itself. And therefore, I feel that when one refocuses, especially India, when it refocuses on the region again, it becomes the first thing which it needs to address this trust deficit between various countries, between India and other countries, and between the various countries themselves. I think that will be a major factor while one speaks of a regional security architecture, because without addressing the trust deficit, it becomes extremely difficult even to address the non-traditional issues like, terrorism, drug trafficking, and cross-border activities. Now, the South Asian security architecture, I think the major component would be that, building consensus on common challenges. As I have already said, the state-driven security architecture has been problematic, and it has resulted in mistrust and suspicion between the countries, because security is thought much more in military terms. Whereas in non-military security, when one speaks of non-military security, I think without cooperation, none of the countries in South Asia can address the non-military security threats. Then the debate of sovereignty has made most of the countries in South Asia extremely sensitive. So one has to take into account the sovereignty sensitiveness of the countries of the region, and how the issues are seen as being an interference. Then, of course, the identity politics, as I said, that discards a kind of commonality. So if South Asia has to build an identity based on common denominators, then, this question of identity politics, each of the state having unique identity, actually does not allow that commonality to be built. Because each state has developed their identity based on, on its exclusiveness. So an exclusive identity actually denies any kind of platform where one can build a kind of commonality or a South Asian identity. Then, of course, the region-centric approach of the states of South Asia. Then the conflictual relations between states of South Asia. India's relations with its neighbors have always seen up and down. And some of the time one has seen improvement of the relations, but most of the time it has been very, very state-centric. Because at the popular level, when people-to-people contact has been there, you really do not find the kind of mistrust and suspicion which actually is projected by the state. You don't find when people, people of two countries, when they meet each other, that is something which is not there. Then, of course, there is this lack of common definition of what constitutes terrorism and who are these non-state actors. Some of the times the non-state actors are facilitated by states. So, it becomes very difficult some of the time to actually make a distinction between state and non-state, when the facilitation happens. And then, of course, the common definition, without a common definition on terrorism, one's terrorist can be the other person's freedom fighter. And that actually leads to a very different kind of problem which prevents the countries of the region to come together. Then why is cooperative security architecture is needed in South Asia? Like I have already emphasized that the forces of market integration will compel the state to cooperate. So in this context, I'm not saying that, the state has to do something. I think the states will be forced and compelled to cooperate with each other, because without any kind of, cooperation between the states, the countries will not be able to address, this kind of security concerns. Especially, in the context of Sri Lanka also, towards the end of the war, the kind of cooperation one saw between various countries of South Asia, including India and Sri Lanka, which actually led to the elimination of the LTT in 2009. Whereas when look at other states in South Asia, with which India shares border, there is a lot closer cooperation between the border security forces, especially between Bangladesh and India, between Nepal and India. There has also been cooperation on the issue of flushing out terrorists who have been hiding in Bhutan for some time through the Bhutan security forces. So this is the kind of cooperation one has seen in South Asia, but most of the things have taken place at the bilateral level because the countries feel very, very comfortable to deal with each other at the bilateral level than at the regional level. Because the moment the reason comes, the moment that, at that particular moment the definition comes. Who is terrorist? Why should anybody be flushed? Can we have a kind of common denominator actually to determine who are the terrorists? Of course, the challenges of terrorism have undermined the state. And with the climate changes which is happening, of course, the cooperation is very much necessary. And so therefore the question is, can these challenges be met by the single country? Of course, the answer is no. I think in this context, I would like to emphasize that India needs to play a much more larger role because given the geostrategic location of the country and given its larger economy, I think it can play a lead role. Unless until a particular country in the region take the leadership, it becomes extremely difficult actually to build a kind of common security architecture where other countries can play equal role. I'll end with this. Thank you so much for your attention.